Welcome back to This is Thailand, the channel where we sit down with the men who came here chasing something and tell you what it actually cost them. No filters, no sales pitch, just the truth, the way they lived it. Today's story is a strange one, and I'll be honest with you up front, it's going to stick with you. Not because it's the wildest thing we've ever covered. There's no gangsters, no midnight escape from a burning bar, no bar girl running off with a suitcase of cash. It's quieter than that, and in a way, that makes it worse. His name is Rainer. He's 55 years old, from a town near Wilhelmshaven, up on the German North Sea coast. Spent 30 years, 3 decades, working the oil platforms out in that gray, freezing water. This is a man who could fix anything with an engine or a bolt in it. Anything at all. There was only one thing in his whole life he couldn't fix, and he'll tell you about that himself. Rainer came to Thailand with money in the bank and a plan in his head. He wasn't stupid. He wasn't some wide-eyed kid. He'd read the warnings, he'd done his homework. He told himself he'd be different from all the sad old farang he'd heard about. He came looking for something real. The title of this one asks a question a lot of you have asked yourselves. 37 million women in this country, and somehow the loneliest men on earth still can't find one. Rainer thought he knew the answer. By the end, he understood the question was pointing somewhere he never expected. What happened to him over the next 2 years, where the money went, and why, and what he finally figured out sitting alone in a half-built house one night. Well, that's his to tell. Here's his story, in his own words. I don't cry. I want to say that at the start, so you understand what kind of man you're dealing with. When my wife died, I did not cry. People expect it, you know. At the funeral, they look at you, waiting, and I stood there dry as a stone, and I thought, what is wrong with me? But nothing was wrong with me. I had already cried, 6 years of it, just spread out, in small amounts. By the time she actually went, there was nothing left in the tank. Let me back up. I worked the rigs, North Sea, out of Wilhelmshaven, most of it, 30 years. You don't know cold until you've stood on a platform in February with the wind coming off that water like it hates you personally. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. That was my life. That was the rhythm of it. 2 weeks steel and diesel and men who didn't talk much, and then 2 weeks home with Marianne. We weren't, how do I say it? It wasn't a big romance. We met young, we married, it worked. She was practical, I was practical. Germans, you know. We didn't say, I love you every 5 minutes like the Americans do on the television. But it was solid. It was ours. She kept the house, I kept the money coming, and every second Sunday we'd walk down to the harbor and not say very much. And that was enough. That was a good life. I didn't know it was a good life at the time. You never do. Then she got sick. I'm not going to go through all of it. It was slow. That's the cruel part when it's slow. Fast, you grieve, and it's terrible, and then it's over. Slow, it just takes pieces. First, she couldn't manage the stairs. Then she couldn't manage the shopping. I took early leave from the rig. Then I took more. Then in the end, I stopped going altogether because who else was going to do it? And I learned a new trade. 60 years old I nearly was, learning to be a nurse. The hoist to get her from the bed to the chair. The chart on the fridge with the pills, the little boxes, morning, noon, night. Which is a strange thing for a man who spent his life with hydraulic pumps and torque wrenches. But it's the same in a way. You learn the system. You keep the thing running. You do the maintenance. Except this machine, you know from the start, you cannot save. You are slowing it down, that's all. You are managing a decline. 6 years. And then she was gone, and the funeral, and me standing there like a stone. Here's the thing nobody tells you. When someone needs you like that, every hour of every day, you hate it. God forgive me. Some days I hated it, and then it stops. And the silence comes in. That house. I cannot describe to you the silence in that house. 30 years the rig was noise. The whole world was noise. And then suddenly there is nothing. No hoist, no pill alarm at 8 o'clock. No one calling my name from the other room. I would sit at the kitchen table, and the clock on the wall was the loudest thing in Germany, so I sold it. The house, the furniture, all of it. People said, Rainer, don't make big decisions in the first year. And they were right, probably. But I couldn't sit in that quiet another month. I took the money, a bit over 190,000 euro when it was all done, plus my pension coming in every month, and I moved into a little rented flat 2 towns over. New walls, no memories in them. And it was exactly the same. The quiet followed me. Turns out it wasn't the house. I didn't know what a man is, if you understand me. For 6 years, I was a nurse. For 30 before that, I was a rig man. Take away the shift, take away the person to care for, and what's left? I would sit there at 55 years old and I genuinely could not answer the question, what am I now? What is this for? I'm telling you all this because if you don't understand where I was starting from, none of the rest of it makes any sense. People hear the end of my story and they say, Rainer, how could you be so stupid, a grown man, an engineer? And they're not wrong to ask. But they didn't sit at that kitchen table with that clock. Anyway, one night, and it really was just one ordinary night, I think I was eating bread and cheese standing up at the counter like I did every night by then. I sat down with the laptop, and the YouTube, it starts playing you things. You don't ask for them, they just come. And there's this fella, sunburned, big grin, sitting by a pool somewhere with a beer. And he says, I found my second life in Thailand. Second life. I remember I stopped chewing. Udon Thani hits you the second you step off the plane. That heat, I'd read about it, everyone writes about it. But reading about heat and walking into it are two different things. It's like opening an oven door with your whole body. Wet heat, heavy, sits on you. Within a minute, my shirt was stuck to my back, and I thought, well, Rainer, you're not on the North Sea now. She was there at the little airport, standing by the barrier in a yellow shirt, no makeup to speak of, holding a bottle of water for me because she said the Farang always forget to drink in the heat. That was the first thing she did. Handed me water before she even said hello properly. I don't know why that got me the way it did. Just a practical kindness. Nobody had done a practical kindness for me in a long time. I'd been the one doing them. Her name was Nong. Well, that's the nickname. They nearly all go by a nickname. The Thais, the real names are long, and you can't get your mouth around them. Nong. It means something like little one, younger one. She was 41, but small. You know, slight and tired around the eyes in a way I recognized. I know tired around the eyes. I'd been wearing it myself in the mirror for 6 years. She'd booked us nothing. That's what I want you to understand about the start of it. No hotel, no big romantic to-do. She drove me in this beat-up little pickup, a Toyota with 200,000 kilometers on it and the aircon wheezing. Out to where she lived, and she showed me her stall. It was on a road outside town, one of these Isayan roads, red dust and power lines sagging everywhere, and a dog asleep in the middle of it that couldn't be bothered to move. Her stall was a lean-to, basically. Bit of corrugated tin, a couple of plastic tables, a cool box. She sold som tam, that's the green papaya salad. She'd pound it fresh in the mortar, this thok, thok, thok sound, chilies and lime, and the little dried shrimp. It'd take the roof of your mouth off, and sticky rice and grilled chicken, moo ping on the little skewers. Working people would stop on their motorbikes, buy a bag, ride off. All day in that heat over the coals. And I stood there in the red dust and I thought, this is a real woman. This is a woman who works, not a bar, not a pole. A woman who gets up before light and pounds papaya for 12 hours for a few hundred baht a day. Now here's what I keep coming back to. What she did next was the cleverest thing anyone ever did to me, except I'm not even sure she was being clever. That's the part that still does my head in. She wouldn't let me pay for things. First night, I go to pay for the dinner, some little place her cousin ran, and she puts her hand flat on the table and says, no. No, no, no. You are guest. I pay. And it's 40 baht each. It's nothing. It's a euro. But she insisted. Next day, I tried to slip her some money for petrol in the truck, and she got almost cross with me. She said, Rainer, I not want your money. I want good man. I am not like bar girl. She said it herself, unprompted. And every time she pushed the money away, every single time, I heard it as proof. There. See? This one's different. This one doesn't want anything. A woman who won't take your money can't be after your money. That's just logic, isn't it? That's just common sense. I have thought about that a great deal since. Because it is common sense. It's also exactly backwards, and I couldn't see it. When somebody refuses the small money early, warmly, again and again, they are not necessarily working an angle, but they are teaching you something without either of you knowing it. They're teaching you that money and this woman have nothing to do with each other. So that later when the money does come up, and it always comes up, your guard's already down. You've already filed her under not that kind. I did the filing myself. She never had to. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you she planned all that. That's the easy version, where she's a mastermind and I'm just a victim. I don't believe that's what happened. I think she genuinely didn't want 40 baht for the petrol. And I think somewhere further down, she also knew that a lonely Farang who feels safe spends more, in the end, than one who feels hustled. Both of those can be true in the same person. That's the thing it took me 2 years and a lot of money to understand. Both things can be true. Those first 3 weeks, though. I have to be fair to them. They were good. They were the best weeks I'd had since before the illness. I stayed in a little guest house in town, and every morning I'd come out to the stall. And I couldn't just sit there, could I? That's not in me. First day I noticed her generator was running rough, sputtering, blowing black smoke. She used it for the little fridge and the lights when the power dropped, which up there is often. And I got my hands on it, cleaned the carburetor, sorted the fuel line, had it purring in an afternoon, and the look on her face, like I'd done a magic trick. Her whole stall depended on that thing keeping the drinks cold, and she'd been nursing it along for years. And here's this big German fixing it in an afternoon for nothing. Then it was the wiring. The whole stall was a death trap, honestly. Wires taped together, hanging in the wet. So I rewired it. Bought the bits myself from a little hardware shop in town. Few hundred baht. Did it properly. Safe. And I felt, God help me, I felt useful. For the first time in a year, I felt like the thing I am. A man who keeps things running. That's what I'd tell the younger fellas watching this. Watch out for the moment you feel useful. Not the moment you feel lust. Not the moment she's beautiful. The moment you feel needed. That's the hook that gets the good ones, the careful ones, the ones who swore they'd never be daft about a woman. Because by the end of those 3 weeks, I wasn't thinking about whether to help her. I was thinking about how. That stall was a fire trap held together with tape and hope, and I was an engineer with 200,000 euro in the bank and nothing to fix. You can probably see where this is going. I couldn't, or I wouldn't. Same thing in the end. The stall was the first real money, and I want to walk you through how it happened. Because if you're waiting for the part where one got swindled, where she cried and asked me for cash, it didn't happen like that. It never once happened like that. That's the whole point of me sitting here. I brought it up. Me, not her. I'd been going out there every morning for 3 weeks, patching that death trap stall, and one evening we're sitting there after she's closed up, drinking a Leo each. The coals still ticking as they cooled and the geckos starting up on the tin roof. And I just said it. Nung, this whole thing needs doing properly. Let me do it properly. Proper roof, proper concrete floor, a real cool room for the drinks, proper wiring so you don't burn to death one day. Let me. And she said no. That's the thing. She said no first. She said, too much, Rainer. Too much money. I cannot let you. And she meant it, near as I could tell. But you have to understand what that does to a man like me. You tell a German engineer with money in the bank that something is too much and can't be done. That's not a wall, that's a challenge. Now I want to do it more. Now it's a matter of pride. So I pushed. I said, it's nothing. It's an investment in your business. You'll make more money. Your daughter benefits. All very sensible, all very logical. And eventually she let me. Reluctant, that's the word. She let me reluctantly, and I felt like I'd won something. 80,000 baht it came to, all in. About 2,100 euro. Proper block-built little unit, tin off, real roof on, concrete down, a small cool room, the lot. I project managed it myself, argued with the Thai builders about the mix of the concrete, drove into Udon to the big hardware place for the fittings. And I was happy. God, I was happy. I hadn't been that happy in years. I had a job again. I had a thing to build, and a woman watching me build it. €2,000. Out of 190. Nothing. That's what I told myself, and you know what? I was right. It was nothing. If it had stopped there, it would have been the best 2 grand I ever spent. But money in Thailand is like water finding a crack. It doesn't stop at the first place, it just shows you the first place. The next one was the father. Now this was different, and I need you to hear me on this, because this is where the easy story falls apart. This wasn't a scam. Her father was genuinely sick. I met the man. Old fella, sat outside their house on a wooden platform under a mango tree. Couldn't hardly walk. Feet swollen up like bread dough. Diabetes. Real diabetes. The kind that up in Iceland, with no money, just eats a person alive. They'd been managing it with next to nothing. The government hospital and whatever Nong could send, and it got worse while I was there. Infection in the foot. The kind of thing where, back home, it's a phone call and an appointment, and up there it's a question of whether the family can find the money before the man loses the leg. What was I going to do? Tell me. You're sitting there, you've got €200,000, and there's an old man under a mango tree who's going to lose his foot for the want of what to me is pocket money. Tell me you walk away from that. I couldn't. I'm not sure I'd respect a man who could. So I paid. Not all at once. Over a few months, the private hospital in Udon, instead of the government one, the medications, the proper wound care, the checkups. It came to about 150,000 baht in the end. Call it €3,900. And I never once begrudged it. I still don't. That's real. That happened. A man kept his foot because of me, and I'd do it again tomorrow. But here's the quiet thing underneath it. The thing I only see now, sitting here. The family started treating me different after that. Warmer. Much warmer. And at the time I read that as love. They love me. They've accepted me. The daft Farang thought he'd been welcomed into the family. He'd been welcomed into the family the way you welcome a good well onto your land. They were fond of me, I do believe that. But the fondness and the usefulness had got themselves so tangled together that not even they could have told you where one ended and the other started. And neither could I. That's not villainy. That's just poor people and a rich foreigner, and the oldest arrangement in the world. Achim saw it before I did. Of course he did. He came up to visit once, drove all the way up from Pattaya, and we had a few hong thongs one night out the back, and he got that look on him. And he said it flat out. Rainer, you're the ATM, mate. Nice family, I'm sure, but you're the ATM. They're all the same in the end. And I got angry, really angry, told him that was exactly the poison that ruined blokes like him. That bitter Pattaya rot where every woman's a thief and every family's a scam. And I wasn't going to end up like that, sat on a bar stool on Soi Buah Khao at 65, hating the whole world. I said some hard things to him. He just shrugged and drank his whiskey and said, all right, hope you're right. I think about that night a lot, because he wasn't right. Not the way he meant it, but he wasn't wrong either. And the fact that he was crude about it, the fact that he was one of those bitter ones, that let me throw the whole thing out. I could dismiss the truth because I didn't like the man delivering it. That's a trick your own head plays on you. Be careful of it. Sometimes the fool telling you something ugly is still telling you something true. Anyway, the warmth in me talking, the wanting to belong, by then I wasn't a visitor anymore. I'd been out 4 or 5 times, staying longer each trip, sorting my 90-day reporting, thinking about the retirement visa proper. I was in it, and that's when Nong mentioned, careful, Krengjai, not wanting to impose. That little fawn, the daughter, she was bright, top of her class, and the school she was at was rubbish. There was a better one in Udon, but it would mean living closer to town, a bigger place. And I heard myself already saying yes before she'd even finished, for a child's schooling. I mean, what kind of a man says no to that? That's how it works. Not the sick buffalo. Nobody ever asked me for a sick buffalo. It's a foot. It's a school. It's things any decent man would pay for. one at a time, each one, on its own, the right thing to do. You don't see the shape of it till you stand back. And I wasn't standing back. I was too busy being useful. The bigger place came next, and this is where I stopped being a man helping out and started being a man building a life. There's a difference. I didn't feel it at the time, but there is. Fawn's school. That was the reason, and it was a good reason. The girl really was bright. Top of her class, this serious little thing, always with a book called Me Lung, which means uncle, and I'll admit that got right in under my ribs. Never had children myself, Marianne and I. So there was a hole there I didn't even know was a hole until this kid filled a bit of it. The better school was in Udon proper, so we needed to be in town. Nong found a place, a decent townhouse, and the deposit and the setting up of it, the furniture, the getting it livable. That came to about 250,000 baht. Call it 6,500 euro. And by now I wasn't even doing the sums the same way. It wasn't 2 grand out of 190 anymore. It was, this is our home. You don't itemize your own home. You just pay. And I'd moved in, more or less, sorted a proper retirement visa. I'd parked the 800,000 baht in a Thai bank, the 22,000 euro you need for the non-O. All done correct. I was proud of doing it correct. And I was living there. Fawn at her good school. Nong's stall ticking over. Me pottering, fixing, being lung, being useful. Sending money back to the parents every month, 10, 15,000 baht, which is normal, which is expected, which I did gladly. I was happy. I keep saying that. I need you to believe it was real happiness, because otherwise the rest makes no sense. You don't spend what I spent chasing something that isn't giving you anything back. It gave me plenty back. A full house. Noise in the morning. Somebody's tap to fix. Then the land. Always the land. You watch enough of these videos, you know it's always the land. And here's the bitter joke of it. I knew that too. I'd read it 100 times. Foreigner can't own land in Thailand. Full stop. End of. Buy a condo in Bangkok if you like. Your name on the paper. Fine. But land? Never. Has to go in a Thai name. And every warning says the same. The day you put your money into land in her name, it is her land. Not yours. Hers. If it goes wrong, you walk away with the shirt on your back. I knew all this. So when Nong started talking about building a proper house on family land out near the village, a real house for her and Fawn and the old folks, no more renting, I didn't get swept away like some daft romantic. Oh no, not me. I sat down and I researched it like I was planning a lift on the rig, and that's what did me in. Not that I ignored the danger, that I studied it, understood it, and walked into it anyway, feeling clever the whole time. Because I told myself, I know it's in her name. I know I can't own it. I've read all the horror stories. But those blokes were fools, weren't they? Drunk, met her in a bar 3 weeks ago. No idea what they were doing. Me, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know the risk, and I'm choosing it with my eyes open. For a woman I've been with 2 years, whose family I feed, whose father kept his foot because of me. This is different. Do you hear it? Do you hear the exact same sentence every one of them says? This is different. I even knew, some part of me, that I was saying the thing they all say. And I said it anyway. Knowing the trap doesn't save you if you've decided you're the exception to it. The house was going to run about 1.5 million baht to build, provincial rates, and I committed to the bulk of it. Between the land preparation, the build, the well, the wall, all of it, I was into that project for something like 40,000 euro across the whole arc of everything, the house being the biggest single lump. My name on nothing, her name on all of it. Signed, sealed, the way it has to be, the way I knew it had to be. And the strangest thing, signing that money away, money I understood I could never get back. I didn't feel afraid. I felt the opposite. I felt like I belonged somewhere. I had a house going up, a family, a little girl at a good school calling me uncle, a place in the world with my hands all over it. After 6 years of watching everything I had get slowly taken away by an illness, here I was building something. Do you know what that felt like? It felt like being alive again. You can't put a price on that. Well, you can, apparently. About 40,000 euro. But this is where the first crack came. Not a crash. A hairline. I started to notice a pattern. And once you notice a pattern, you can't unnotice it. Though God knows I tried. The warmth followed the money. That's the plainest way I can say it. When I'd just done something, paid for the school, put money into the house, Nong was lovely, attentive, soft, close. And in the quiet stretches between, when I wasn't spending, she went somewhere else. Not cruel, just flat, busy with the stall, tired, on her phone, online, the blue light on her face at night, thumbs going, and she never said it. That's the thing that started to gnaw at me around then. Sitting in that half-built house one evening with a warm chang, the concrete not even cured, smell of it still in the air, dogs barking somewhere across the patio, and the light going that heavy gold it goes up there. She'd say I was a good man. She'd say good for the family. She'd say Fawn loves you. Papa loves you. She never once, in 2 years, said she loved me. Not once. Eastern people don't gush, I told myself. It's the culture. Kreng Jai. They don't throw the words about like the West does. Practical people. That's all it is. And maybe that was true. Probably it was partly true. But I was doing a lot of work, wasn't I? To explain away a silence. When you find yourself building elaborate reasons why the woman you've given 40,000 euro to has never told you she loves you, that's not nothing. That's data. I was an engineer. I knew how to read data. I just didn't want to read this particular gauge because I knew what it was telling me, and I wasn't ready to shut the whole operation down. So I did what you do. I looked at the reading, and I tapped the glass and told myself the sensor was faulty. There was no big blow-up. I want to say that first, because everyone waiting for the phone full of messages, the other man, the private detective, none of that happened to me. I almost wish it had. A betrayal like that, at least you know where you stand. What I got was slower and quieter and, in a way, harder to live with. It just added up, like corrosion. You know how rust works on a rig? It doesn't announce itself. There's no bang. You go along thinking the steel's fine because it looks fine, and then one day you actually get down and inspect it properly, and you realize it's been eating away underneath the whole time, everywhere at once, and the thing was never as sound as you told yourself. That was the truth of me and Nong. Nobody told me. I told me. Eventually. There was one night that tipped it. Not a dramatic one. That's what I mean about it being quiet. I'd come back to the townhouse in Udon after a couple of days out at the village checking on the house build. The walls were up by then. They were plastering. And I was tired, and I came in and Nong was on the sofa online. Blue light on her face, thumbs going, and she didn't look up. Just, hello, Rainer, food in the kitchen. Didn't look up. And Fawn was at the good school doing well, and the old man had 2 good feet, and the stall was making money in its nice new block building, and there was a whole house going up out in the village with my money in it and her name on the deed. Everything I'd paid for was working exactly as it should. Everything was running, and I stood there in the doorway and I thought, nobody in this house actually needs me anymore. They need the money. The money still has a job here. But the man? So I did the thing I do. I'm an engineer. When something doesn't feel right, you stop guessing and you measure. I sat down, took me a couple of days on and off, and I actually went through it. Every transfer, every trip to the bank, the stall, the father, the school, the townhouse, the land, the house, the monthly money to the parents, 2 years of it. I laid it all out like a job costing, money out, and then I tried to put a column next to it. Money in, not money. You know what I mean. Warmth in, love in, the stuff you'd actually cross the world for. And the 2 columns didn't balance. They weren't even close. And it wasn't a fiddle. It wasn't a con. The numbers on her side were real. She'd cooked for me, looked after me when I had a dose of dengue and was shivering like a wet dog. Fawn's little drawings of the 3 of us. real things. But you put them next to what I'd spent, next to what I'd built, and any engineer alive would tell you that structure was never going to stand. I'd been loading it far past what it could carry and calling the strain commitment. When I finally sat her down, I didn't shout. I don't shout. I just asked her straight, the way you'd ask about a fault. Nong, do you love me? Or is it the family? Tell me true. I won't be angry. Just tell me true. And here's the part one respect her for even now, even after everything. She didn't cry. She didn't put on a show. She didn't grab my hands and beg. She just went quiet for a bit, looking at her tea, and then she said, and I'll never forget it. She said, Rainer, you are a good man. I take care of you good. My family, we take care of you good. But you want something I never say to you. I never say I love. You hear it, but I never say. And she was right. I checked back, in my head, across 2 whole years. She never had. Not once. I'd built the entire thing, the house, the family, the second life, on top of a word she had been careful, honest enough, never to say. She let me pour the concrete. She never once told me the ground was solid. That was me. I did that. I stood in front of a gauge reading empty, and I decided the gauge was broken. I never lied to you, she said, and I sat there, and I turned it over and over, and she hadn't. That was the terrible thing. She truly hadn't. Every no she'd ever said to my money at the start, every I am not bar girl, every good man, all of it was true. She'd cared for me a real amount, and she'd also taken a great deal of money from a lonely foreigner, and never once in 2 years had she pretended those two things weren't both sitting there in the same room. The lie wasn't hers. The lie was the story I wrote over the top of the true thing, in my own head, in my own hand. Because I could not stand the silence in that flat back in Germany, and I wanted so badly for someone to need me again. And you know the daftest part? Even sitting there doing the sums, hearing her say it plain, part of me still wanted to stay, still wanted to go out and finish the house. That's how deep the wanting goes. It doesn't switch off just because you've proven to yourself it's costing you everything. I had to get up and walk out of that room while the wanting was still going, because if I'd waited for it to stop, I'd have been there another 2 years and another 40,000 euro. I added it up in the end, all in. The stall, the father, the school, the townhouse, the land, the house, the monthly money, 2 years of living, something the far side of 55,000 euro. Gone, most of it into land and a house I will never set foot in again, both in the name of a woman who never once lied to me. 55,000 euro to be told the plain truth I'd been refusing to read off the gauge the whole time. Cheap when you say it like that. Felt like the most expensive thing in the world. I flew out on a Tuesday. I remember it was a Tuesday because the monks had been round that morning, the orange line of them going house to house in the gray light before the heat came up. And I stood at the gate of that townhouse with my one bag and watched them go past and thought, well, that's that. No lawyer. That's the thing people always ask. Rainer, did you not fight for the land, the house, all that money? And no, I didn't, because I'd known from the first day, from the forms, from my own careful research, exactly what the law was. Foreigner can't own the land. Her name on the deed. That wasn't done to me. I did that with my eyes open, feeling clever. You can't cry robbery over a thing you signed knowing full well what you were signing. That would be a lie, and I'd told myself enough lies for one lifetime. So I just left. Told her plain the night before. I said, Nong, I'm going home. I think you know why. And she didn't argue, didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't put on the show. She just nodded slow and said, you are good man, Rainer. Take care of yourself. And she meant it. That's the part that still gets me. She meant every word of it. She just didn't mean the one word I'd built the whole house on. Fawn hugged me at the door, called me Lung one last time. That was the one that near finished me, if I'm honest. Not Nong, the kid. And here's the thing I did not expect. On the plane somewhere up over the Bay of Bengal with a bad little cup of coffee going cold on the tray, I waited for the grief to come. The rage, the robbed blind, They took everything feeling that all the bitter fellows on Soy Buakau carry around like a rucksack full of bricks. And it didn't come. What came instead was lighter. I felt lighter. Isn't that a strange thing? 55,000 euro down, 2 years gone, and I felt like a man who'd finally put down something heavy he'd been carrying so long he'd forgotten it was there. Because I'll tell you what I worked out, up there over the sea. The money was never the thing. The money was just the shape the thing took. What I'd actually been doing, from the moment I sold that house in Wilhelmshaven with my wife barely cold, was running from a quiet room. 6 years I'd been needed every hour of every day, and then nobody needed me, and I could not bear it. So I flew to the other side of the world, and I bought myself somebody to need me. That's the truth of it. Stripped right down. I paid to be needed, because I didn't know who I was if I wasn't. And that's not Nong's fault. That's not Thailand's fault. There's 37 million women in that country, the title of this says, and a man like me still washes up empty-handed. And it's not because there's a shortage. It's because I went looking for a woman to do a job that no woman can do. I wanted somebody to fill a hole that another person had died and left in me. And you cannot hire that. You cannot build it out of concrete in a good school and a stall with a proper roof. It's an inside job, that hole. I took it all the way to Isan, and it was still exactly the size it had been at that kitchen table in Germany with the clock ticking. Nong wasn't a villain. I need that said for her. She was the eldest daughter of a poor family, and in her world that means you carry everybody. And along came a Farang with money who wanted to help carry, and she let him, and she was honest about it the whole way down. She never told me she loved me because she didn't, and she was too decent or too proud to say the word to get the money. There's an honesty in that most people would never manage. She cared for me, and she took my money. Both true. Both at the same time, true. It took me 2 years and the far side of 55 grand to understand that a thing can be both. So what would I tell you? You sat there watching this, thinking about your own flight, your own second life. Grieve first. Whatever broke you, the wife, the divorce, the job, whatever emptied you out, grieve it there, at home, in the cold, with the clock ticking before you get on any plane. Because if you don't, you'll fly it out with you in your hand luggage, and you'll pay it off in baht for years, and it'll still be there when you land back home. Learn the difference between being needed and being loved. They feel very alike from the inside, especially to a man who fixes things. But they are not the same, and if you can't tell them apart, somebody will, and they'll be kind about it, and it'll still cost you everything. And this last one, when a woman won't take your money at the start, that is not proof of anything. I read it as the safest sign in the world. It was just the door opening quiet. Doesn't mean there's a thief behind it. Doesn't mean there isn't. It means nothing at all except you've got to keep your eyes open a while longer, that's all. I'm back in Germany now. Little flat, not the same one. Got a dog, finally. Do a bit of volunteer work down the harbor, fixing up old boat engines for a sailing club for lads who've been in trouble. Turns out there's people who need a thing fixed right here, and they never once asked me for the deed to anything. Money's tighter than it was. I'll not be wealthy again. But I sleep, and the quiet room, it's not so loud anymore. I sat down in it in the end, instead of running. Cost me a house in Isen to learn I could. That's my story. Do with it what you will. And that's Rainer's story, told exactly as he wanted told. No villain, no smoking gun, no suitcase of cash out the back door. Just a good man who mistook a hole in himself for a problem he could fix with his hands and his wallet, and flew 6,000 miles to find out he'd packed the problem in his own bag. We tell a lot of stories on this channel about people who got cheated. This wasn't one of them quite, and that's exactly why we wanted you to hear it. Because the fellow who gets scammed by a bar girl on Walking Street after 3 weeks, well, you can tell yourself you'd never be that daft. But Rainer, careful, sober, did his homework, had a notebook. If it can catch him, it can catch you. The dangerous ones aren't always the obvious ones. So before you book that flight, sit in the quiet room a while. Do the hard grieving at home. Sort out who you are with nobody needing you, because that's the only ground that holds. Thailand's a wonderful country full of good people living hard lives, and it will give you a great deal, but it will not fill a hole that you brought with you. No place can. No person can. Look after yourselves. Do the inside work first, and we'll see you next time, here on This is Thailand.